The rise of Dricus Du Plessis is more threatening than a lot of people think to the champion Adesanya. Dricus has become one of the easiest fighters to underestimate, given his quote-unquote sloppy style, lack of technique, vulnerable defense on the stand-up. He's made a lot of technical errors in the past, but the thing that people seem to overlook about Dricus is where he might lack some of the technique in some areas of fighting, he fights very well by a game plan. The man is as strong as an ox and has the kind of power to hurt anybody in the world. But more importantly than that, he is the only fighter that Israel Adesanya has ever fought that has a legitimate submission game that will attempt to take him to the ground. There is Jan Blachowicz, but Jan has only attempted 2 submissions in the last 5 years. He's not that same guy anymore that used to go for submissions back in the day. And every single grappler that Adesanya has fought has been a wrestler with little submission game and poor to average top control. Dricus will be the first fighter that has great top control as well as a legitimate threatening submission game. If he takes Adesanya to the ground, he is the one who has the skill to take out the champion unlike anybody else was able to. Nobody else had the ability to do that. Dricus is a guy who has good takedowns for the middleweight division, good top control, especially if he establishes half guard, and dangerous submissions. This is the guy that threatens many different kind of submissions like Darce chokes, not only to submit you with those, but to distract you into him transitioning using that. If you disrupt his balance, he'll attack your legs with a heel hook, with an Achilles lock, with a toe hold. He attacks you with guillotines. He sinks in the rear naked choke when he gets your back. Dricus is the only fighter that Adesanya has ever fought that actually attacks with all these different kind of submissions with dangerous precision. In the stand-up, it's hard to see anybody beat Adesanya outside of Pereira, given how slick Izzy is on the feet, how technical he is, with the length that he has, how fast he is, and the power that he possesses. Dricus' way of doing anything in the stand-up is to make it a dirty fight. Make it awkward, unorthodox, and dirty. Do not make it technical whatsoever with Adesanya in the stand-up, and not only will that allow him to find some openings for his punches to land, but also open up more takedown opportunities when Izzy's balance gets thrown off from the awkwardness. And Izzy has shown in the past that he is susceptible to think a punch is coming and the opponent shoots under for a takedown. Both Marvin Vettori and Robert Whittaker did this to him multiple times. As they advance in the stand-up, they shoot a takedown and Izzy throws a punch thinking that they're going to throw some kind of strike. The punch goes over their head as they're attempting the takedown. This happened multiple times in both those fights. And those are the 2 fights you have to really look at more because they're more recent. They're closer to the current Adesanya we see today. And those 2 fighters took him down more than anybody else. Whittaker and Marvin Vettori took him down in 4 rounds out of their fights. Dricus has different ways of taking the fight to the ground. Most of Whittaker's and Vettori's takedowns were naked shots from a distance. No setups, no masking, just shooting and getting Izzy down. Of course, the most recent one was with Whittaker, where he hit him with the head and arm throw while tripping him out and established a half guard immediately afterward. That is something very important we're going to have to touch on later. Out of these 3 fighters, Dricus is the only guy to immediately think about transitioning, advancing on his opponent, whereas Whittaker and Vettori didn't really do that. They try to just hang on to their position instead of advancing. So there's the head and arm throw, which is different than your traditional wrestling takedowns. Then we look here when he fought Till. He feints by advancing forward in the stand-up, getting Till to cover up. This is probably not going to work against Adesanya, because Adesanya is going to use his range to get away, or he's going to intercept Dricus due to his proficiency in his striking. But because Till covered up, Dricus is tied up with him in the clinch. He immediately throws a knee to the body, then an uppercut. So going from body to head, getting Till's attention on these strikes, and holding onto that single collar tie. Till also has his single collar on the left side. And what do we know from Till when it comes to the clinch? He always tries to get the tie plum, doubling up on his grip, and tries to squeeze in his right hand to get the tie clinch. And look how Dricus notices it immediately. Right as Till tries to squeeze in his right hand, Dricus lets go of his single collar, changes levels, and goes in for a double leg, escaping Till's clinch attempt, and is already on the hips, drives it forward. Till had very little resistance against it. And again, we have to notice, immediately advances to break that post as Till tries to walk into the cage. We're going to talk about this later because it's probably the most important thing when it comes to the difference of positional awareness from Dricus to Whittaker and Vettori. And here we see a little bit of the strength from Dricus against Darren Till. So he's going in for the double leg as Till has that left underhook, breaking Dricus' grip on that side. But he's so incredibly strong, he was still able to sweep Till off of his feet with a double leg, lifting up that right leg of his. I mean, to be able to do this to somebody in the same weight class as you is incredible. This man has to be probably the strongest guy Izzy's ever fought outside of maybe Romero. I mean, look at this. He's literally picking up Till with that one side and guides him with his right arm. He almost swept Till with one arm guiding him with his own right, taking off that balance of his left leg. And what does he do immediately when he takes him to the ground? Transitions into the full mount, knowing that Till's going to try to walk up the fence. This is something Adesanya does routinely when he gets taken down. So you do see here Dricus' ability to take the fight to the ground with different techniques. Of course, he does have similar kind of techniques that Whittaker and Vettori displayed against Adesanya by shooting in from a distance with no real setup outside of bouncing off the cage, which is something he does very often, not only for his takedowns, but even his strikes, where he rebounds off the cage, bounces off it, it runs right at you, gets a single leg on Darren Till, runs him to the ground, and look at the power of Dricus' double leg against Till. He shoots the double right under Till's elbow because earlier in the fight, Till intercepted him with a similar elbow, so it showed Dricus adjusting in the fight, going under for the takedown, mixing up his boxing and wrestling throughout the fight, and just tears down Darren Till with his double leg, sweeps him off his feet. The man's strength is incredible. Now we gotta talk about what happens after they take him to the ground. So we know that Dricus advances immediately. He gets to work right when he takes it to the ground, but what does Whittaker and Vettori do? Well, we'll look at some examples here. Whittaker, as soon as he takes the fight to the ground, hits the lateral drop on Izzy, who is very long, so it's harder to get this on someone his length, but Whittaker had enough drive and a bit of a surprise for Adesanya. He didn't expect a takedown to come, even though it was an open takedown with no setup, which is pretty alarming for Izzy's defense in the center of the cage. Whittaker gets the fight to the ground, and what does Izzy do immediately? He tries to give up his back slowly and stand up against the fence. What does Whittaker do about it though? He just hangs on. He hangs on to his hips. Hanging on to Izzy's hips is what Whittaker and Vettori did. They never tried to advance. We'll look at multiple times where this happens, where Izzy tries to walk to the fence, stand up by giving up his back. Very vulnerable escape for Izzy. We look at Whittaker again. He comes in with the double leg as Adesanya tries to throw a left hook, and Whittaker was able to get under the punch, precisely turn the corner and drag Izzy to the ground, stepping over to the other side from where his head position is to become more of a blanket on top of Izzy. If he's just on one side, Izzy has that whole space, that whole right side of himself to stand up or reverse the position, but because Whittaker jumped to the other side, he's able to get across Izzy's body like a blanket. But notice Whittaker's grip. Where is he holding Izzy the whole time? He's holding him around the legs, and Izzy, just like always, he turns around, gives up his back, tries to stand up, and Whittaker adjusts his grip above to the waist as Izzy is standing up. Never once did he try to break the post. Never once did he try to stop Izzy from standing like this, but from this, he was able to get Izzy's back by jumping onto it. Dricus would have absolutely gotten this position on the ground against Izzy instead of letting Izzy stand up in order to get it. That's the difference in skill when it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu between Whittaker and Dricus. He wouldn't need Izzy to stand up to get this. Or look here like Vettori, where Izzy gave up his back again, able to get to his feet, and Vettori keeps dragging him into the ground. Adesanya keeps posting, walking up with his hands to stand up again, and Vettori never breaks the post. He never stops Izzy from getting to his feet. The middleweights definitely have to learn from guys like Khabib and Islam Makhachev, who master the ability of stopping the opponent from getting up like this. Dagestani handcuffs, wrist control, all of that stuff. But Vettori and Whittaker tend to hang on Izzy's hips, keep trying to drag him to the ground. But it's very hard to drag this guy to the ground because of his length and how well he is against the fence compared to the center of the cage. Now look at the difference between that and what Dricus does. As soon as he takes you to the ground and you give your back trying to stand up, exactly like Izzy does, what does Dricus do? He doesn't just hang on their hips and walk with them, right? Whittaker and Vettori were walking with Adesanya up to his feet, letting him do it. Dricus immediately grabs onto that posting arm, stopping his opponent from walking to the fence. He slows it down for them. Now look at this grip that he has compared to what Whittaker had on Adesanya. And because he was able to do this to Till, he was able to get on top of them, trapping them against the fence. He actually used that fence that Till tried to walk up on against him. He draws his knee under Till's midsection to balance his weight on top. And also that knee is blocking Till's legs from standing up. Look how many times Till tries to stand up using his legs and they keep getting blocked by Dricus. Till got stuck, and oftentimes you heard the commentators say, why isn't Till just standing up? He just has to stand up from this. Dricus was not letting him stand up. And because of that position, Dricus was able to constantly hammer him with that left hand. And look, when he takes Till to the ground with that sweeping double, Till tries to give up his back yet again, just like Izzy does, and Dricus gets right into full mount, knowing that when you're standing up like this, you are narrowing your entire stance. You're not looking for the guard, you're trying to turn your back, stand up, and this gives the opponent on top of you an opening to transition just like this. He gets to the full mount, Till gives up his back. That allows Dricus to sink in the body lock, right? The figure 4. This is different than what Vettori and Whittaker did because they also both got Adesanya's back. Whittaker was standing up when he got it, but Vettori was on the ground. They both did not go for the figure 4. They both went in for the hooks. And Adesanya was able to get out of both of those positions. And I'll talk about that after this. Look at this other time where he takes down Till. Till posts on the ground looking to stand up against the fence. And Dricus even looks at the post. He's not winging it. He sees exactly what he's going for. He looks at the arm, grabs onto it with both hands. He is not standing up whatsoever from here. So when Izzy gives up his back, he's always going to be vulnerable to get his back taken. And when Vettori got his back, he sunk in the hooks instead of going for the figure 4. And that was a big mistake for him. So here's how the scramble happened. Vettori got into half guard. He lost his balance attempting to rotate in order to transition out of this. So look how he turns to his right side, putting most of his weight on his right knee. This is going to allow Izzy to turn into Vettori, cause him to pivot on that right knee, reversing the position to his back. But Izzy made the mistake of not noticing that Vettori had a left underhook on him. It's very hard to reverse like this if you do not have the underhook. The underhook is trapping Izzy from securing this reversal. And this made it even worse as Vettori was able to get the full mount. And Adesanya immediately gives up his back out of panic. Vettori secures the back, pulls him into the ground as Adesanya tries to just stand up. This is something he constantly does. Even if he's in a horrible position, he's going to look to just stand up. It shows a bit of a lack of technique compared to some of these other Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys. Instead of trying to get out of the position technically, he just tries to power through it. And it's going to be very hard to work, especially against someone like Dricus, who not only has the superior Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skill, but also is physically stronger than Izzy. So Vettori pulls him to the ground, gets his back with the hooks, and he almost gets the rear naked choke. It actually came in very, very close. But Vettori made a big mistake as he had the rear naked choke. Look at that. He has a good grip. It's not the most optimal choke, as it's not a blood choke. But look what he does because he had the hooks. He opened them. He focused so much on choking Adesanya that he opened his own hooks up. Izzy didn't do anything to cause this. It's just middleweight. That's what it is. That was the issue with this happening. It's middleweight. You're going to see guys do that, and it completely threw off Vettori's near victory against Adesanya, and Adesanya spanned on top of him. And when Whittaker had Adesanya's back as they were standing, instead of securing the position with the figure 4, he had the hooks, and Adesanya was able to use that hand fighting to pry open the grip, pull the arm around his head, which is the right technique to do. And as he did that, he pulled Whittaker off of him. If Whittaker had the figure 4, he still would have been locked on Izzy's back. Dricus went straight in for the figure 4. And from the figure 4, Till's trapped there for a while, but Till did the right move. He turned to his left side after fighting off the choke, as you want to turn into where that lock is, right? If you look at this figure 4, you can see the lock and the key is right there where Dricus' foot is locked in under his left leg. By turning into it, it's going to force Dricus to have to open it up if he wants to turn the other way. But Till did not get out because of that, because Dricus actually made a mistake trying to transition on top of him. He tried to turn on top of Till, and it caused a scramble. He could have went straight for the figure 4 yet again, but instead tried to get a position on top of Till, which was a mistake that he made. But a lot of the takedowns are probably going to happen against the fence because Izzy likes to back up to it. If he's getting pressured, he makes sure of himself to back up as close to the fence as possible. He's so confident in his takedown defense against the cage. Using his length, he has great balance. Again, great at hand fighting. It's hard to pry him away from the cage as well. That's where a lot of the takedowns seem to happen in Adesanya's fights. And not only does he use the cage against you to stop your takedowns, he also uses it to reverse while he's on the ground. So as you can see with Vettori, who tripped out Adesanya against the fence, he got half guard on the side away from the cage. But what you want is the half guard on the same side of the cage, right? You want to take away the cage from Adesanya, so it would be better to get the half guard on that other side. If you don't, all of your weight is going to be on Adesanya's right side. So with his left foot, he's able to kick off the fence, rotating you and him, reversing the position completely. And we can look at some of the other slick stuff that Dricus did on the ground against Whittaker. So what this guy will do is, when he gets on top of you, firstly, he loves the half guard position. He's so strong and heavy in half guard on top of you, and he'll threaten many submissions to get good shots on you. So when he took down Whittaker with that trip, Whittaker tried to shrimp up into him, getting in that right underhook. So from that position, Dricus was not able to land ground and pound. He had to counter this somehow. So what he does is he attacks the Bravo choke, leaning into Whittaker, forcing him into the mat, getting him to respond to this choke. Look how he slowly scoots in, heavier on top of half guard, getting his body closer to Whittaker. Once he does that, he kneels up, posturing over Whittaker, landing elbows. Whittaker throws in the butterfly hooks to disrupt Dricus's balance. This is actually something that Adesanya does very often when you get into his guard. But Dricus hugs the underhook, right? He has that right underhook on Whittaker, and he hugs into it, squeezing on top of Whittaker, putting a lot of pressure on that butterfly hook. And look how he's leaning into Whittaker's right side. Whittaker had to let go of the butterfly hook because of all the pressure, and he tries to close in his full guard. And Dricus constantly leans with all of his weight into Whittaker's right leg. This is a type of pressure pass to break the full guard, in which it does. Look how Whittaker's legs break open. He doesn't know what to do with his left leg anymore. There's so much pressure on top of him. Dricus hooks and throws over Whittaker's right leg in order to get into side control and attacks the guillotine so he can recapture the half guard for control. He lets go of the guillotine, attacks with a Darce choke. His ultimate goal is to soften up and hurt Whittaker here. He lets go of that choke, which was a distraction, in order to land some big shots. He was multiple steps ahead of Whittaker when it came to the grappling. So that's ultimately the end of the breakdown, guys. Dricus is much more of a threat to Adesanya than we initially thought. He has shown many things in his career that can give Adesanya some issues, especially when it comes to the ground game, and that's the place that Dricus wants to be with Adesanya. He doesn't want to stay standing too long. He wants to mix up his boxing and wrestling enough where he can get the fight to the ground and capitalize on Adesanya's somewhat defenseless Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did, make sure to give this a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.